Well, hello, Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
Good. Can you tell our students a little bit
Would tell
about
our students a little
about
bit
yourself? We've got a little bit of an
about
echo.
yourself. We got a little bit. A little delay here. Yeah. I'm John Bergmann. I'm one of the pioneers and founders of Flip Learning. I was a high school science teacher for 24 years, and in 2007, along with Aaron Sams, had this crazy idea for Flip Learning. It's obviously become this huge movement across the world.
So, what
So,
what is your biz? What is Flip Learning as a business for you?
So in terms of business, I'm leading the Flip Learning movement around the world. I've launched the Flip Learning Global Initiative, flglobal.org. In that, I travel a lot, speaking and sharing about Flip Learning. There's also a group of research fellows, master teachers, ambassadors, technologists who are on board of Flip Learning Global Initiative, and I'm heading that up. So I'm also writing books. I've now written 8 books. Got a new one coming out next month on the subject, and we have a certification program that a lot of people are finding helpful. And so, yeah, I've left the classroom to lead the Flip Learning movement around the world.
Great. So, in those courses that you have, what what would you say is your vision or your mission, or what do you want to see come out of that? What do you want flipped teachers who come out of your program to look like?
Well, Flip Learning is not about the videos. I'll be thinking Flip is just the videos. That's not true. It's about what you do in the class. And it really is, it's a flipping of what we call the individual and the group space. The individual space when students are working by themselves, the group space is when they're working in some kind of a group. It could be the whole group, the whole class, small group, whatever. And even sometimes even by themselves in the room with the teacher. But the individual space, the direct instructions move to that individual space, and then the group space gets redefined to an active place of learning. And, that's where the magic of the flipped classroom happens. It happens in the group space, and that's the key piece of that. So when you take one of our certification courses, you're going to learn all about individual group space, but why you should flip, how do you do assessment in a flip because it's different. How do you plan in a flip? What are the technology of the flip? How do you flip a math class versus a history class versus a social studies class versus the elementary class, and it's a very comprehensive way to look at flip. And so the people do it well. There's a lot of people who are flipping poorly because they really just think it's just this thing with the video, and they're wrong. So, yeah.
So you say assessment looks different. Explain that. How so?
What oftentimes happens in a flipped classroom is that, it's actually really changes formative assessment. You can keep your summative assessments the same, although interesting trajectory is that it seems like if teacher flips for a year or two, they start to actually rethink even summative assessments and do much more authentic assessments. But, most when they first start, they're going to do their traditional summative assessments. But because the teacher is free to walk around the room so much more because you're not spending any time or virtually any time doing direct instruction, then that creates huge opportunities for lots of different formative assessment opportunities for your students. And of course, there's many of the strategies that actually are even in the certification course are a lot of these, differentiation / formative assessment strategies that we know and love, but never have time to do, frankly. Because if you have a teacher, got a 50-minute class, think of a high school teacher or whatever, they get 50 minutes, maybe 45, they're going to lecture for 30 minutes a day, and they're going to spend 15 minutes helping kids. On a flipped classroom, you're going to spend 5 minutes going over a few questions, and then you got 45 minutes to do something active and engaging with your kids. So it's a huge change in just the time, and now you've got time to do differentiation, the formative assessment techniques that really make a difference in the classroom.
What would you say is really unique about how you like to see class time, that collaborative class time spent? Are kids grouped in specific ways? Do you have recommendations around that you would make for incoming librarians who hopefully would look to this flipped model, because theoretically that's kind of been that's been what research is. So for school librarians, ideally, this is not a new concept.
Well, right, but there's still, I've worked at schools, worked with my librarians, I've helped librarians flip. And, for a librarian, oftentimes you've got the kids, they're coming from, Mrs. Jones's class and you've got a short period of time, teach them how to do research. But what we'd rather have them do is do research, right? Instead of teaching them how to do research. And so to me, this is the big question in Flip. What's the best use of your face-to-face time? I would argue it's them doing research, not learning the techniques on how. So in a flipped sort of librarian model, seems to me like the answer would be to have, short micro videos on how to access the different databases that you have, how to use even the book, the paper resources, how do they access and search and, for those, whatever it is, because of course you're the information gods. You know how to get good information. Everybody thinks I can just Google things. That's not true. Because you can get a lot out of Google, but sometimes it gives you bad sources, of course. And you're also the people that teach kids how to look at Google and say, yeah, that source is not true. So those are the kinds of things that are easily done in a flip video, but then let's practice. Like, hey, I want you to go search. Go ahead, search on Google for X. And bring back your results. And then let's have a discussion about why this source would probably not be such a good source to rely on because, it has a very strong bias on one side of an issue or another, or whatever. They're getting information about smoking from, the cigarette companies. Probably not a biased source, kind of thing. All that stuff. So that's the big question. What's the best use of your face-to-face class time? Argue it's not standing up and disseminating information, it's applying information.
I agree. Our students, when we do exit tickets, number one, they're like hands down the thing that they value the most as far as helping them to get to where it is that they need to be is the one-on-one time. Like that is it. And so when we go into classrooms and we do just that, and we do the one-on-one, the conferencing, that's where they're really getting the best support for their real learning, for their in-depth learning. So,
and a short micro video on how to use those tools so they become good-ish at it. They're not going to be perfect, but then when you're one-on-one or one-on-three with them, then you can make sure. No. There's this other tool. Like advanced Google tools even are pretty awesome. And you can search for Google Scholar is amazing. If you know how to use it, but you got to know how to use it.
Do you have recommendations about length of video, or does it depend on the parameters of?
I do actually. I would argue. Short is the right answer. Okay, and so I would take, roughly the age of the child, and that's the maximum length of the video. But never over like 12 or 13 minutes. So for high school, it kind of falls apart like at the upper grades. So just keep them short. But here's the thing you may not believe. People don't believe me until they actually start making themselves. But if you have a teacher, I think or librarian, doesn't matter, who has let's say a 25-minute presentation. Okay, it's normally a 25-minute presentation. When they convert that into a video, at first it'll be about half as long, 12 minutes or whatever. And if they get good, it'll be a third as long. So as you practice and begin to learn, you can get it succinct, short, and right to the point.
I find that I end up editing out a good chunk of the superfluous stuff, so I record it and then I just take it out later.
Right. But you can not just even in the editing, you will get more succinct as you practice and do things. And clearly, some of the things, the distractions that happen in a face-to-face kind of teaching time are gone. The kid who's, and the bell ringing, the kid being, talking to his girlfriend. All that other stuff is just, of course, you're doing this, in your office, after the fact, et cetera, et cetera. So.
What have been your greatest success stories or your greatest, what were your ahas along the way? You've been at this for some time now, and you've seen amazing stories from everywhere. Do you have a few that really stand out?
What we're starting to see now, this is the thing that's really exciting, is it's not flipped classes anymore, it's flipped schools. Now whole schools are moving to the flip model. And it usually starts with a few classes, a few teachers at the school, and then it starts to spread and spread and spread. That's really been the trajectory. It's not. It's been a grassroots movement from its inception. It started room 313 and 314 at Woodland Park High School in rural Colorado, but it started that way. But we start seeing schools who are buying into the flip, and now, of course, there's lots of interesting. Worldwide, there's lots of amazing interest in flipped across the world. Hundreds of thousands of teachers from, elementary through university, even in corporate training, there's flipped happening. Anecdotally, there's been some just cool stories. I remember a kid coming up to me in Korea and just thanking me. And he was thanking me because, I don't know if you know the educational context there, but most kids go to school all day, and then they go to Hagwon all afternoon. Hagwon is the private tutor school, so they can get ready for the big test at the end of high school, basically. And he told me, he says, now my friends don't have to go to Hagwon, or my friends who can't afford to go to Hagwon don't have to. So they were getting in just, the regular school day, from, 8 to 3 or whatever it was there, they're getting all the information they need because they're getting so much more face-to-face time with their teachers. And they don't need to do this insane thing. They'll stay till 10 o'clock at night. It's absolutely crazy. My personal opinion. The kids don't have a life, and I don't think it's a good idea. But anyways, I told that to the press. And I've also talked to a lot of teachers whose whole careers have been revitalized. It's kind of getting burned out. Kids have changed. And all of a sudden they've reinvigorated their careers because they finally said, "Man, I finally can connect with kids." Because the biggest benefit of flipped actually isn't pedagogy. It isn't research. It isn't test scores. It's relationships. I keep hearing over and over again. I just saw a post this morning on our certification sort of discussion. One of the teachers was talking about how he has so much deeper relationships on an affective level with the students than ever before. And as you know, the research on kids' success in school, and if they have a connection with an adult, a caring adult, their trajectory is so much better. I saw a study, something like if you've got 4 positive adult connections, if a kid has 4 positive adult connections, their chance of success skyrockets. That's like the minimum. Can they get 4 teachers, librarians, whatever, to care about them? Who doesn't matter? Some adult in the building, could be the janitor. That's what will change their trajectory. And so and teachers who are stuck at the front of the room lecturing don't develop relationships with kids. I mean, they can. Okay, I'm overstating that. But you just deleted 35 minutes for relationships. Now I've got 35 more back.
Right. Are there specific studies that you would recommend for our students to look at on the flipped model in particular?
I could send you some.
Okay.
Yeah. How about I send you some? Some of our research fellows. Part of the Flipped Learning Global Initiative that I've launched this past year, I've got a group of research fellows, master teachers, and ambassadors, and technologists, and professional development companies who are all trying to spread flipped learning well. And my researchers actually have recently sent out a list of just really cool studies. In fact, I'll just forward you an email. It's a little as a note because somebody had said, I got an email from somebody saying, my principal doesn't think there's any kind of research, And so one of my lead research fellows, he came back and said, I'm so tired of hearing that. Here's the 10 studies. It's a little snarky, but the studies are all embedded in there.
Perfect. That sounds great.
I'll just forward that to you, the snarky email. But you'll get the links are all in there. So.
Some portion of this particular section of the unit is about design and how, obviously software design, how to create video, how to create do you have any specific guidelines that you would recommend for the structure, design, layout? Are there any surefire, any things that you think of are serious mistakes, and anything that really are good indicators of a successful experience?
Yeah. So our team has created the Flipped Learning Certification Program, and in there's an entire unit on planning for the flipped. And I'm in this short interview, I don't have time to go through all the details. There's a number of different, there's rubrics and there's guides that I think would be significantly helpful there. You also alluded to there's a lot of mistakes people make when they first flip their class. There's like a whole section on that. Maybe that'd be something I could do quickly. I don't know if I get them all, but I call it 12 mistakes people make. I don't know if I can get all 12 off the top of my head, but number 1, they make their videos too long. Number 2, they use other people's videos. Again, going back to relationship, it's much better if the teacher's the one who creates the content instead of just using a source video on YouTube. Not to say you can't do that occasionally. Obviously, we want to have other voices in our kids' lives, but they're going to connect more with you as the teacher or as the librarian that they see, whatever the case might be. I think a lot of people think that they just give kids a video and they don't teach kids how to watch the video. So it's a very important thing to teach the students how to watch an instructional video because You might think they know how to watch a video, but that's not the same thing. I mean, watching a stupid cat video on YouTube or Spider-Man or whatever is not the same thing as watch an instructional video on how to access a tool using Google Scholar or whatever database. I mean, that's a whole different ballgame. So it takes some time to teach them how to watch. I think particularly in your instances as a librarian, I would encourage you. I don't know. So the fourth mistake maybe is that you've got to make sure it's super easy for kids to get to this content because you don't see your kids every day. And so, is there some kind of a school-wide learning management system or way where it can easily be disseminated or indexed on your website or whatever it might be, so that they don't have to click 14 ways to find it? Otherwise, I mean, you've got to really think through that workflow, and that's actually when a whole school thinks through it. Makes a huge difference because the workflow in the math class is the same thing as the workflow from the kids' perspective in the library. So they don't have to go for the library I go here, and for the math class I go here, and for the That's where you actually need to have some centralized decision making, I believe. So there's a few of sort of the mistakes people make when they first flip the class.
Great. Is there any I'm being mindful of your time. So is there any surefire thing that you think that needs to get out there as a message to basically to pre-service librarians?
Yeah, I would just say this. Flip's not about the video. It's not about the video. It's not about the video. It's about the active and engaged things you can do in class because of that. That's the key. And if you don't make your class active and engaging, then you're doing it wrong. I liken it to this. This is sort of, we've launched this thing, we're calling it Flip Learning 3.0, and our biggest finding as we studied this is we see Flip Learning as a meta-strategy that needs to supersede others. And to think of it this way, there's a foundation, and then if you think of a house, the foundation is flipped. I believe to be the foundation of our schools, okay, is a flipped learning environment. And then we still got the rooms on top, and they might be project-based learning, it might be inquiry, it might be research, it might be all these other things, and they're going to apply in different situations. I mean, how you research in a science classroom is quite a bit different than I would in a history classroom, right? And so it's going to be tweaked. Or another metaphor that we're using also is you might think of flipped as the operating system of your computer, Windows, or on my phone here it's iOS, I have an Apple phone, or whatever. That's flipped as the operating system, and the apps are things like project-based learning, inquiry, cooperative learning, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the things that we plug in as we need, because we're going to do those in different ways, in different contexts, depending on both the subject that we teach and the level that we teach, and even just our own personal kind of things we like. Some people like PBL more than others. You get the idea. So I think that's we need to create a new foundation for learning. And actually, an interesting thing about the new foundation is actually part of my new keynote. I actually think that the new foundation is an old foundation. We need to go to the pedagogies of the past, I say. And what I mean by that is if you look historically at education, way historically, you'll find that learning was personalized, small group, and collaborative. If you go back to Socrates and Confucius, in the old days, that's how education happened. And then along came the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution happened, and Horace Mann wanted everyone to have an education, which was wonderful, by the way. But then the kinds of schools that we opened were these Industrial Revolution models. And we need to go back to the old way of school, of course still valuing that we now can educate every kid, not just some kids, like they did back in ancient days. We're going to educate every kid, and we now have a way to do that, and Flipped is a way to really personalize, individualize, and go back to the pedagogies of the past, the Socratic model, if you will, the Confucius model, which are quite similar in education.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. This is actually very sensible. And I have to say this has been a lovely conversation because it validated a lot of the things that we've been doing for quite some time here. So makes personally, on a personal level, feels great. So thank
awesome.
You.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for your time. I really, really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it, John.
Yeah.
And have an amazing adventure on your journeys and learning.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so
Enjoy
much.
Your day.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye.